The first thing I saw was not a bear. It was not a deer. It was not even something I could name. It was tall and bent in the wrong places, standing between the trees of Deep Appalachia. Its arms were too long. Its head was too small. And its eyes shined pale blue in the dark like two tiny moons. The creature was breathing fast, like it had just finished running. But it had not moved at all. Then it opened its mouth. It did not roar. It did not growl. It made a sound like someone trying to copy a human voice for the first time. "Help me." The voice sounded broken, twisted, like it hurt to speak. Behind me, my camera was still recording. I was supposed to be the horror spectator, the guy who explores creepy places and tells scary stories online. I thought I was brave. I thought I was ready for disturbing and creepy creatures of Deep Appalachia. I was wrong. Because when the thing stepped forward into the moonlight, I saw that its legs were bending backward. And then it started running straight at me. That was the moment I realized I had made a terrible mistake coming into these mountains alone. And that was the moment my flashlight died. Everything went black. And something grabbed my shoulder. But to understand how I ended up in the dark woods of Appalachia being chased by something not human, you need to know how this all started. My name is Ryan Walker. I run a small horror channel online called Horror Spectator. I travel around the United States visiting strange places and telling creepy stories. Most of the time, it's just old buildings, empty forests, and weird noises that turn out to be raccoons. Nothing real. Nothing truly disturbing. Until Appalachia. It started when I got an email from a man named Caleb Turner. He lived deep in the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia. He said strange creatures had been seen near his town for years. He said people heard things at night. He said animals were disappearing. At first, I thought it was just another local legend. But then he sent pictures. Blurry photos taken at night. Something tall between the trees. Something that did not look like any animal I had ever seen. The photos looked fake. But I couldn't stop staring at them. I decided it would make a great episode. Disturbing and creepy creatures of Deep Appalachia. That title alone would pull in viewers. So I packed my gear. Camera. Flashlight. Extra batteries. Drone. Food. Tent. I drove for hours into West Virginia. The roads became smaller. The towns became quieter. The mountains grew taller around me like dark giants. When I reached Caleb's town, it was almost evening. The place was small. A gas station. A diner. A few houses spread far apart. Thick woods everywhere. Caleb was waiting outside the diner. He looked older than I expected. Grey beard. Tired eyes. "You came alone?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "I always do." He shook his head slowly. "You shouldn't." Inside the diner, he told me about the creatures. He said people called them many names. The crawlers. The hollow men. The tree walkers. He said they only came out deep in the woods. Far from the road. Far from light. Most folks don't go that deep, he said. But sometimes hunters do. And sometimes they don't come back right. Don't come back right? I asked. He looked down at his coffee. They come back quiet. Scared. Won't talk about what they saw. That night, I stayed at a small cabin Caleb owned near the forest edge. It was simple. Wooden walls. Old furniture. One bed. The woods behind the cabin were thick and dark. Before sleeping, I stepped outside to film a short intro for my channel. The air felt heavy. Too quiet. No crickets. No owls. Just wind through the trees. Tonight, I said to the camera, we explore Deep Appalachia and search for the disturbing and creepy creatures locals have reported for years. I smiled. I wish I hadn't. Around midnight, I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. Then I heard it. Footsteps outside the cabin. Slow. Crunch. 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 I froze. Probably a deer, I told myself. The steps stopped right outside the window. I held my breath. Then came a soft tapping on the glass. Tap. 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 My heart started pounding. I slowly turned my head toward the window. The curtains were thin. And behind them, I saw a tall shadow. Too tall. Much taller than any person. The shadow moved its head in a strange jerking motion. Then the tapping stopped. I grabbed my flashlight and pulled the curtain aside fast. There was nothing there. Just trees. Just darkness. The next morning, I told Caleb about it. He did not look surprised. "You heard it close?" he asked. "Right at my window." He nodded slowly. "They're curious." That word made my skin crawl. Curious. Like I was some kind of toy. Later that day, I decided to go deeper into the forest. Caleb warned me not to go too far alone. "I'll be fine," I said. I wasn't fine. The deeper I walked, the stranger the woods felt. The trees were tall and thin. The ground was soft with old leaves. The air smelled damp and old. I set up small trail cameras on trees. As I walked farther, I noticed something strange. There were no animal sounds. No birds. No squirrels. Nothing. Then I found something on the ground. Bones. Small ones. Clean. Like something had picked them dry. My stomach tightened. I kept walking. I should have turned back. After another mile, I found something worse. A deer. Or what was left of it. Its body was twisted in a way that made no sense. Its legs bent wrong. Its neck turned too far. But there was almost no blood. Like something had drained it. That's when I heard it for the first time. A whisper. Soft. Behind me. "Ryan." I spun around. No one there. My name echoed lightly between the trees. I never told Caleb my full name on camera. So how did something out here know it? The whisper came again. Closer. "Ryan." My hands shook as I lifted the camera. "Is someone there?" I called out. The forest stayed still. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Something tall slipping between the trees. Too fast. Too smooth. I tried to follow it with my camera, but it was gone. My heart was racing now. This was no deer. No prank. This was something else. I started walking back toward the cabin. But the woods didn't look the same. The trees felt closer together. The path I came from was gone. And that's when I realized something terrifying. The forest was completely silent. Not just quiet. Silent. Like the world had stopped breathing. Then I heard heavy footsteps behind me. Not walking. Running. Branches snapping. Leaves crunching fast. I turned. And that's when I saw it clearly for the first time. Tall. Thin. Skin pale like wet ash. Arms hanging almost to its knees. Eyes glowing faint blue. It stopped about 30 feet away and tilted its head. Studying me. Its mouth opened slowly. And in a broken voice that sounded almost human, it said, "Why are you here?" My camera shook in my hand. This was real. This was the disturbing and creepy creature of Deep Appalachia. And it was speaking to me. Before I could answer, more shapes began to move in the trees behind it. More glowing eyes. More tall figures stepping into view. There were not just one. There were many. And they were slowly surrounding me. They were everywhere. Tall shapes stepping between the trees. Pale skin glowing under the weak sunlight. Long arms hanging low, fingers almost touching the ground. Their eyes were blue and empty, like cold stars. I backed away slowly. I don't want any trouble," I said. The first creature tilted its head again. Its neck bent too far to one side. "You came here," it said, voice cracking like dry wood. I swallowed hard. My legs felt weak. "I'm just filming," I whispered. The creature took one slow step forward. Behind it, the others began to move in a circle around me. Not fast. Not running. Just walking. Like they knew I had nowhere to go. My heart was pounding so loud I thought they could hear it. Then one of them suddenly made a sharp clicking sound. And in that instant, they all rushed at me. I turned and ran. Branches slapped my face. Roots tried to trip me. I could hear their footsteps behind me. Fast, heavy, not human. They moved through the forest like they had lived there forever. I didn't look back. I just ran. I don't know how long I ran for. Maybe minutes. Maybe seconds. My chest burned. My lungs hurt. Then I saw something ahead. A rocky slope leading up to a small cave. Without thinking, I climbed. My hand scraped against stone. Dirt filled my nails. I pulled myself into the cave just as one of the creatures reached the bottom. It looked up at me. Its mouth stretched wide in a way mouths should not stretch. But it didn't climb. It just stood there, watching. One by one, the others appeared below. None of them tried to follow. They simply stared. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the first creature slowly raised one long arm and pointed deeper into the cave behind me. "Go," it whispered. My blood turned cold. They weren't trying to stop me. They were guiding me. Before I could think, a deep rumbling sound echoed from inside the cave. Not from the creatures. From behind me. Something bigger. Something moving in the dark. I turned slowly. The cave tunnel stretched back into blackness. And from that blackness came a low, heavy breathing. The creatures outside suddenly stepped back. Their blue eyes dimmed slightly. Almost like fear. That's when I understood something worse than being chased. These things. They were not at the top of the food chain. Something inside that cave was. The breathing grew louder. Closer. My flashlight was still in my hand. I switched it on, pointing it into the darkness. The beam shook. The light showed wet stone walls, claw marks carved deep into rock, and long streaks on the ground like something huge had been dragged. Then the light landed on two massive shapes shifting in the shadows. Eyes. Not blue. Red. Huge red eyes opening slowly. The breathing stopped. The cave went silent. Then the red eyes blinked. And something massive shifted forward. I scrambled backward, nearly falling out of the cave entrance. The pale creatures outside hissed softly and retreated further into the trees. They were afraid. Very afraid. The red-eyed thing inside the cave let out a deep, heavy growl that made the rocks vibrate. I didn't wait. I slid down the rocky slope and ran again. This time, the pale creatures did not chase me. They vanished into the woods like smoke. The forest felt alive now. Watching. Every shadow seemed darker. Every tree seemed taller. I didn't stop running until I saw the edge of the forest and the roof of Caleb's cabin. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me. Caleb jumped up from his chair. "What happened?" he asked. I could barely speak. "There's more," I gasped. "There's something else in the cave. Bigger. The others are scared of it." Caleb's face went pale. "You found the old tunnel," he whispered. "You knew about it." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the window and looked toward the forest. "They stay near that cave," he said quietly. "Always have." "What is it?" I demanded. He shook his head slowly. "Some say it's older than the town. Older than the mountains." That didn't make sense. Nothing could be older than mountains. That night, I checked the trail cameras I had placed earlier. What I saw made my hands shake. In one photo, taken just minutes after I passed that area, there were at least 6 pale creatures standing around the deer bones I had seen. In another photo, they were all looking directly into the camera. Like they knew it was there. But the worst photo was the last one. It showed the cave entrance. The pale creatures were standing in a half circle around it. And between them was something massive. Blurry. Dark. So tall its head nearly touched the top of the image frame. 2 faint red glows stared out from the blur. And the pale creatures were bowing. Bowing. My stomach dropped. "They serve it," Caleb said quietly when he saw the photo. "Serve it?" I asked. He nodded. "They bring it things." My mind raced back to the bones. The deer. The drained body. "And if they don't?" I asked. Caleb didn't answer. Around midnight, the power in the cabin went out. The lights flickered once, twice. Then darkness. Outside, the wind had stopped again. That same heavy silence from before returned. I felt it in my chest. "They're here," Caleb whispered. A loud thump hit the side of the cabin. Then another. Something large dragged across the roof. Wood creaked. The walls trembled. I grabbed my camera again. Even now, part of me needed proof. Another thump. This time at the front door. The door handle began to rattle slowly. Not violently. Slowly. Testing it. Caleb loaded a shotgun with shaking hands. "You shouldn't have come," he muttered. The rattling stopped. Silence. Then a voice came from outside the door. Soft. Broken. "Ryan." It wasn't Caleb. It wasn't human. It was one of them. Using my name again. Then, from the roof above us, a much heavier sound landed. The entire cabin shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Something huge was up there. Much heavier than the pale creatures. The wood above us began to crack. Caleb looked at me with wide eyes. "It followed you," he whispered. The ceiling splintered. A long, dark claw pushed through the wood. Not pale. Black. Thick. Massive. Another crack split across the ceiling as something enormous began forcing its way down into the cabin. The pale creatures outside started making that sharp clicking sound again. But this time it wasn't a signal to attack. It sounded like panic. The claw ripped downward. Wood exploded. And a huge, red eye appeared through the hole in the ceiling. Staring directly at me. The red eye blinked once. The entire cabin shook as the massive creature forced its head through the broken ceiling. Wood snapped like toothpicks. Dust filled the air. I could barely breathe. Caleb fired the shotgun. The blast was deafening. The creature didn't scream. It didn't even flinch. The pellets hit its dark skin and fell to the floor like tiny drops of rain. Its eye slowly turned toward Caleb. That was worse than if it had roared. It was calm. Calm and angry. The pale creatures outside began clicking loudly, almost like they were warning it. The massive head pulled back slightly, then slammed downward again. The ceiling gave way. Half of it collapsed. The creature's upper body forced its way inside. It was huge, too big for the room. Its skin was black and rough like burned bark. Its arms were thick and long. Its fingers ended in curved claws that scraped the wooden floor. And its red eyes glowed brighter than before. Caleb grabbed my arm. "Back door," he shouted. We ran through the kitchen as the creature smashed the living room apart behind us. The walls cracked. Windows shattered. The cabin we had just stood in minutes ago was being torn open like a toy. We burst through the back door into the cold night air. The forest looked different now. The pale creatures stood in a wide circle around the cabin, watching. Not attacking. Watching. Like this was part of something bigger. The massive creature crawled halfway out of the ruined roof and let out a deep growl that shook the ground under my feet. The pale ones dropped to their knees. Bowing again. Caleb pulled me toward his truck parked behind the cabin. "Move!" he yelled. We jumped inside. The engine struggled for a second before roaring to life. As we sped down the dirt road, I looked in the side mirror. The cabin was almost gone. And the giant creature stood fully upright now. It was taller than the trees. Its red eyes followed the truck as we drove away. The pale creatures began running after us, not fast enough to catch the truck, but fast enough to remind us they were still there. We didn't stop until we reached the small gas station at the edge of town. Caleb shut off the engine. We both sat there breathing hard. The gas station lights flickered weakly. The town felt too quiet. No cars. No people. Where is everyone? I whispered. Caleb stared at the dark road ahead. "They don't stay out late anymore," he said. "Because of that thing." He nodded slowly. "They call it the Deep One." That name made my stomach twist. "It's been here longer than the town," Caleb said. "Longer than the roads. Long before anyone built cabins." I remembered what he had said before. Older than the mountains. That still didn't make sense. "We have to tell someone," I said. He gave a weak laugh. "Tell them what?" "That something older than the forest just tore my cabin apart." I didn't answer. Because it sounded impossible. But I had the footage. My camera. I turned it on and checked the recording from inside the cabin. The screen flickered. For a second, I saw the red eye filling the frame. Then static. Then nothing. The file was corrupted. All of it. Every clip from tonight. Gone. No, I whispered. The pale creatures must have been smarter than I thought. Or maybe the deep one was. Suddenly, the gas station lights went out. Total darkness. The humming of electricity stopped. The silence came back. That heavy, pressing silence. Caleb slowly turned his head toward me. It followed, he whispered. A long shadow moved across the road in front of us. Slow. Massive. Blocking out the stars. I looked up through the windshield. And I saw it. Standing at the edge of town. The deep one. It didn't rush. It didn't roar. It simply stepped forward. Each step cracked the pavement. Behind it, pale figures moved between the buildings. More of them than before. Dozens. Maybe more. They're spreading, I said. The truck suddenly shook as something landed in the bed. One of the pale creatures dropped down in front of the windshield. Its blue eyes stared straight at me. Up close, I could see small cracks running through its pale skin, like dry clay. Its mouth opened slowly. You showed it, it whispered. I froze. Showed it what? I asked. But it didn't answer. Behind it, the deep one raised one massive arm. The ground trembled. Caleb slammed the truck into reverse. The pale creature slid off the hood as we sped backward. But more of them were coming. They stepped into the road from every direction. Not running. Just walking. Like they knew we couldn't escape forever. Caleb spun the wheel and drove through a side street, heading toward the highway. The deep one didn't chase us fast. It didn't need to. It just kept walking. Slow. Steady. Certain. As we reached the highway, I looked back one last time. The town lights flickered back on. For a second, everything looked normal. The gas station. The small houses. The empty road. And then I saw something that made my heart stop. The pale creatures were no longer outside. They were inside the houses. Standing at the windows. Looking out. At us. At the road. At the world beyond the mountains. Caleb drove for miles without speaking. Finally, we crossed the state line. The forest thinned. City lights appeared ahead. I thought maybe we were safe. Maybe it would stay in Deep Appalachia. Maybe it belonged there. Then my phone buzzed. No service had worked all night. But now it did. I looked down. There was one notification. A video upload. From my account. My blood ran cold. I had not uploaded anything. The title read, "Disturbing and Creepy Creatures of Deep Appalachia, They Are Coming." My hand shook as I opened it. It was footage from inside the cabin. Clear. Perfect quality. The red eye filling the screen. The deep one staring directly into the camera. And then the video shifted. It wasn't inside the cabin anymore. It was outside. At the edge of town. Dozens of pale creatures standing in the streets. Then the camera slowly turned. Toward the highway. Toward us. The video ended with the deep one speaking. Its voice was low. Deep. Clear. Now, they will see. The upload had already reached thousands of views. It was spreading. People were sharing it. Commenting. Laughing. Calling it fake. But I knew it wasn't fake. The creature didn't need to hide anymore. It wanted to be seen. Caleb stared at the screen. It doesn't just live there, he said quietly. It grows where people look. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The pale creature had said I showed it something. I showed it the world. The city lights ahead suddenly flickered. Cars on the highway slowed. Street lights blinked out one by one. In the rearview mirror, far behind us, I saw a tall shape walking along the road. Not as large as before. Smaller. More solid. More human. Its red eyes still glowed. And behind it, more shapes followed. Not just in the forest anymore. On the highway. On the road leading to the city. The deep one was changing. Adapting. Spreading. And it was no longer alone. As the first power station in the distance exploded in a burst of sparks, plunging half the skyline into darkness, My phone buzzed again. The view count hit 1 million. And climbing. Outside the truck, in the dark fields beside the highway, pale figures began rising from the ground. Not walking out of the forest. Rising from the soil itself. Like they had always been there. Waiting. The red-eyed figure in the mirror stopped walking. It looked directly at me. And smiled.